Hello and welcome back to another ITH video, and as you can see behind me, today I'm going to be reviewing one of the most hyped vehicles of 2019. That's right, it's the Suzuki Jimny. Now, there are loads of videos of the Jimny going really extreme off-roading and splashing through big muddy puddles and all that kind of stuff, plastered all over YouTube. And yes, it can go off-road. As you can see, I've done some extreme off-roading here. Okay, I parked up a big pile of rubble. But as you can see, yes, it goes off-road. It's got a low-range gearbox. It's got all that kind of stuff. We know this. I think the Jimny should be reviewed where 99% of them are going to be driven. Here. In a car park, driving around town, just like any other normal car.
To start off with, you really can't talk about this new Suzuki Jimny without talking about the huge amount of hype there is around it. This is an utter anomaly in the automotive landscape that I don't think anybody will have predicted. Nobody could have sat there and said, when Suzuki launches their new little Jimny off-roader thing, that they will be selling for over list price, and there's a 9 to 12 month waiting list. It's an absolute phenomenon, this car, and I think it's absolutely brilliant for Suzuki, but we need to sort of try and understand why in this review, I guess, because is it worthy of all the hype, or is it just a victim of the internet going crazy over something and being all happy after that? So I think the first thing that has really caught the public's eye about this, and it's pretty obvious really, is the styling. Suzuki have pulled off an absolute masterstroke here. What they've created is basically a mini Mercedes G Wagon. I mean, it's a cross between a G Wagon, an old Land Cruiser, a Land Rover Defender. It's got all the same attributes as those. It's got the boxy looks. It's basically two large boxes on wheels. It's got the decent raised ride height. You know, it's got really long travel suspension. It's got big chunky wheels. It's got the barred grille at the front. Also reminiscent of a Jeep. It's obviously a bit of a pastiche. It's not what you'd call original styling, but my God, does it work? I mean, okay, the colour of this particular press car is somewhat violent. It's a very, very bright, kind of lime greeny, yellowy colour. I think they call it kinetic yellow, but to me it's definitely a green, but it's like that blue-yellow dress thing that went around a while ago. This colour definitely helps, because I think, honestly, this side of a sports car, like a Lotus or a Lamborghini or something, I've not had as much people stare at this thing and wonder what it is than in any other car. It's absolutely fantastic. People just don't know what it is. I wouldn't say that the looks of it are exactly butch. It's very, very cute. It's got an inherent cuteness to it. It's got the little round lights, and it's got that certain something that basically all car designers strive to create. And it's just got that certain something, and people want this car. They see it and they want it. They don't care. The biggest surprise to them is actually that it's so inexpensive. People assume something this good looking and this cool is expensive, but it's not. I mean, the styling has really good benefits and drawbacks as well. I cleaned this car this morning before we started filming, and now the windscreen and the A-pillars and the front grille, the whole lot of it is a bug graveyard, because it's almost vertical. I mean, you're driving through in summer and it's just, I've found caterpillars, I've found all kinds of things embedded in the front of this thing. It really is, it's an insect graveyard out there. But one benefit of this boxy styling is that you can, for a start, you've got fantastic visibility. It's just a big old glass house around here, The glass isn't at all curved really. You look out, you can see around, you can see everything, and you know exactly where the corners of this car are. If you look out the back, you see the C pillar, the furthest most rear pillar, and that's the back. That's it right there. And the front, you see the end of the clamshell bonnet. There it is. That's the front. It goes without saying, after all that I love the styling. One of the things that has actually really surprised me about this Jimny is the interior. Now, you expect a fairly cheap car like this to not have beautiful Volkswagen-esque soft touch stuff everywhere, which is fair enough. This hasn't. But the bits you do touch are really quite soft. The steering wheel's nice. There's a grab handle over here, which is apparently quite useful. The doors, there's soft touch bits where you need them to be. I mean, the rest of it is industrial. You know, there are exposed screw heads on everything. It's meant to look industrial and agricultural in a way. So it kind of fits in with that look. And, you know, there's a lot of bare metal in here. There's very, very hard touch plastics in places, but it's meant to be a bit of a workhorse, this car. But that's not to say that it's in any way Spartan. This is the SZ5, catchily named, trim level. There's only two. There's in the UK anyway, there's SZ4 and SZ5, and you can get an auto box. You get a whole lot of kit for what you see is a fairly basic car. You get lots and lots of stuff in here. I mean, looking around the cabin now, we've got a big infotainment screen. It's about 7 inches or something over here. The infotainment isn't the best, but you've got Bluetooth connectivity, you've got all your phone controls on the steering wheel here. You've got a sat-nav system, which is passable, I'll say. Definitely passable. I've used it. It's got a nice stereo. Well, it's got a stereo. It's got DAB and all this kind of stuff. Sound quality not the best. Very tinny, but that's basically because this is a tinny car. It's very tiny and, you know, metal. Yeah. So we've got everything. We've got air conditioning. We've got we've got automatic headlights. And there's things like that you really wouldn't expect. I would never have expected this to have cruise control for a start. You know, cruise control is the reserve of slightly more, I would have said slightly more road-focused cars, but this has got it. For a start, road sign recognition, which really surprised me. So as I'm driving along, it's telling me what the speed limit is in front of me. We've got lane departure warning, we've got collision avoidance things, so if someone steps out, as they did on me earlier, if somebody steps out in front of you, you get a nice loud beeping noise to warn you that you're about to mow someone down. You've also got hill descent control, you know, all the kind of kit that you could imagine that you'd need, and more. And this is a very cheap car. I mean, this is $17,999 for this car. I mean, that is not a lot of money for what is a very, very cool and very funky car. So up front here, we've got 2 seats, and there's quite a lot of adjustment, up and down, forward, back, all the works. Steering wheel only goes up and down, which is a bit frustrating. But you know what? It's a nice place to be. I'm not expecting this to be a Bentley, you know. This is a functional car. I'm a big person, you know. I'm 6'3", and I can fit in this front more than enough room. Even when there is a passenger, you're not sitting on top of each other, which is brilliant. But talking about practicality, we need to talk about the back of this car, and so for that, we'll go to the back. Okay, so as we're talking about practicality, I thought I'd just talk about the rear seats in the Jimny for a little bit, and you know what? I'm actually quite impressed. See, this is the driver's seat in the position that I was driving earlier, and I'm sitting behind it, and there's plenty of legroom. Well, okay, my knees are touching, but there's enough room. My feet are quite high up,
but there's headroom, shoulder room, and I'm 6'3", and I can fit in the back here. It's only a two-seater. There's only 2 seats in the back here because there just isn't room for any more. You've got these weird little shelves at the side here, which is where the inner wheel arch is. But you know what? I'm impressed.
Right, now what is this thing like to drive? Because, I mean, this is slightly different to my normal style of test, because normally I'm driving hot hatches and that sort of thing, and you have to drive them and so their door handles are scraping. The difference being, if I went around a corner too fast, the mirrors would actually scrape on the ground on this car. It's got quite a lot of roll, I'll give it that, you know. This is where the Jimny kind of falls down. They've focused on the off-road element quite a lot, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is a very competent off-road vehicle. It's got 2-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive high range and 4-wheel drive low range gearbox, which is very impressive. This has got the 5-speed manual gearbox. I think this is the one to have. You can have an automatic, but I can only think that would make it slower. And trust me, that's not something that this needs. The little 1.5 engine has only got just over 100 horsepower, and let's just say it's not the sprightliest of vehicles, this one. Like, if I put my foot down, I'm going 30 miles an hour in a 60. 30 miles an hour, okay, and in 3rd gear, I put my foot down. Oh, it's noisy. That's only 4,000 RPM as well. Oh, that was 50. Yeah, it's not quick. It's not quick, and it's very, very noisy. It's not the nicest sounding engine, which is a shame, because this brings me on to one of my biggest bugbears, which is the gearing of this. Now, it's obviously a little more higher geared so that the performance is actually better. But the problem being, when you're going, say, 65 along the motorway, 70 isn't really a thing. It's very sort of, it's not great. I'll leave it at that. At 70 to 75, you're kind of floating around a bit. So say 60 to 65, it's doing 3 to 3,500 RPM, which is a lot, which makes a noisy thing to drive. One thing that I do find staggering, though, is that that doesn't seem to affect the fuel economy of this thing. I mean, I'm basically driving a brick powered by a little 1.5 litre engine, and the fuel economy is staggering. It's doing 45 to the gallon the whole time, whether I'm driving around town or trying to get down the motorway at some speed. It's doing 40 to 45 to the gallon. Absolutely amazing. Speaking of that engine, let's cut to our engine spec sheet bit. The little 1.5 litre engine only puts out 101 horsepower in the Jimny, which means you're looking at 14.2 seconds to 60 and a top speed of only 87 miles per hour. But there's over 30 mpg and just under 200 grams per kilometre of CO2. Now, this manual Jimny SZ5 costs just under 18 grand. You'll need to shell out another £1,000 for the automatic though, which prices it at just under 19 grand. That's quite a lot for such a small car. But if you go over to botb.com, then you can get a ticket to win a Jimny for just 95 pence. So that's just what you need to do. Go over to botb.com and buy some tickets right now. Okay, so all the technical nonsense out of the way. This thing, it's got a lot of turns lock to lock, right? There's a lot of turns, which means you always have to turn the wheel a bit more than you think when you're going around a corner. But this actually hangs on quite well, mainly because you're not actually going that quick. If you anticipate the body roll a little bit, this thing can be quite a lot of fun to throw around. When you're sort of taking this down a normal road or even a B road or something to get somewhere, it helps the fact that you're sitting really high up in this. It's a very small car, but you still sit quite high up, which gives you great visibility out across the road. Genuinely fantastic. I mean, I'm genuinely astounded at how easy this thing is just to drive around town, throw around a country road, just to drive as a normal car. I would have thought it would be a lot more compromised than it actually is. The other benefit of this of this long travel suspension that it's got is the fact that it's got a really supple ride. I mean, the roads in Britain are terrible. They're genuinely awful. And it is comfy. And if you're driving around town and there's massive potholes, no worries. Most other cars, you sit there and you're freaking out because every time you go near a pothole, you think you're gonna destroy a wheel. This has got massive chunky tyres. Nah, shrugs them off, no problem. There's a bump there, doesn't matter. The other bonus point of that suspension is the slightly amusing fact of how soft it is. And I shall demonstrate that now. I've stopped at the side of the road. Now, okay, I'm a fairly big guy, but how many other cars can you do this in? It's like being on a boat. Anyway, moving on. Feel the burn. Feel the burn, baby. Now, see, this is the problem. I've put myself in a position now where I have to pull out. In fact, I'm actually not even going to do that. I'm going to use this opportunity to turn around. I'll just drive up, mostly into a hedge, drive around, like, yeah, oh, right. This is about the third time this has happened. It doesn't like to find its gears, this thing. I was stuck on the motorway and I was trying to get it into fifth and it wouldn't go in about 4 times. I had to slow down. Oh, there's a bit of a bump there. And I had to slow down and I had to just sort of basically take it back into third, fourth, fifth, and it went in fine. Just slightly concerning. And as you saw then, it struggled to go into reverse a couple of times and it's also struggled to go into first. So now, oh, feel the burn. This is 0 to 60. 0 to 60 isn't quick. 20, 30, oh, 40, 50. No, I'm not going to get to 60 before I hit traffic. Yeah, not quick.
So there you go, that is the Suzuki Jimny. Now, to summarise my thoughts, I think I figured out that this small, butch, cute looking sort of off-roader is actually the best city car you can buy at the moment, which is a bit odd. You see this has got really good visibility. You're sitting quite high up. It's a box, so you can see all the corners really easily. It's got long, supple travel suspension, so you don't need to worry about potholes. The enormous chunky tyres help with that as well. It's got a really good turning circle. It's also barely drinks any fuel. I mean, this really is the best city car you could have. And on that Top Gear style bombshell, that's the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching, and please do not forget to like, subscribe, tick the notifications bell, all that kind of stuff. And there'll be plenty more videos on the ITH channel coming very soon. Bye-bye.